Hello, everyone, and welcome to another video discussion. Today, I will be speaking to a fellow hoof care practitioner, Anna Deli, who is located in Cyprus, but as far as I know, she also schedules regular visits to Greece, as well as other countries here in the Balkan area. She also offers online consultations and teaching, and she runs an educational hoof care related blog on her website. And she's also a co-author of a book called Hoof Boots, which she updates regularly. And she has lately managed to gain an incredible amount of attention online. And that was the reason I wanted to speak with her before she becomes too famous. So I'm going to read a small paragraph that she sent me. Anna was educated as an engineer physicist, a specialist in nuclear physics, and she initially studied trimming with Hiltrud Strasser. And in the process of further work, she adapted her methods to the Cypriot hard, rocky ground, taking into account the needs of horses and their comfort as a priority. So Anna, I'm so glad to have you here. Thank you for accepting my invitation. So the first question I want to ask you is, what made you become a barefoot trimmer? What was your motivation? What did you find interesting?
I think it's quite a popular thing to start with. So I got a horse. It was a dream of my life to get a horse, and I was 28. So I bought a horse here on Cyprus. And I didn't know hoofs actually grow. I thought because they don't grow, people put metal. So to prevent hoofs from wearing when riding on asphalt. I was so green, like I didn't know nothing about horses, but I bought one and I still have it. And anyway, and they told me, so you have this livery fee, you have annual vaccination, and you have to pay for shoeing once in 6 weeks. I was like, but why we have to make it again and again? And they said, what do you mean? They grow, the hooves grow, then 6 weeks later you have to call a farrier who will cut it and then attach a horseshoe again. I was like, but why we cut it and then we protect it from wearing? It was like kind of strange. And I ordered the book from Russia. The author, he's kind of a politician and a journalist and a horseman, and he's a kind of famous. His name is Alexander Nevzorov.
Yeah.
And he has a series of books about this kind of fair approach to horses, management and stuff. And his book, the name is Everything, if I translate it into English, Everything You Don't Want to Know About Shoeing. Okay. And I was like, okay, what? It shouldn't be so harmful because, you know, everybody.
This book that you mentioned, is it from his wife, Lydia, or not?
Yes, Lydia. And the book actually is a small book. It's more like a magazine, basically, the size, I mean, and very nicely, I mean, very briefly, but a kind of roughly explained that why it's so harmful. I asked my husband, because he's also a horseman and his horse was always barefoot, but it's just because this level of horses in Hungary are barefoot. And I told him, look, maybe we should take off shoes of my horse. So he also read the book and he said, yeah, of course, it's not a question, we remove it. So we removed it. And then I was like, and who's gonna trim it now? Because in the book, it was also mentioning that barefoot, natural, this kind of physiological barefoot trim is not the trim they make when they shoe, because the horseshoe is flat. So you have to create flat surface rather than a natural hoof has some curves, let's say arches, whatever. Anyway, some physiological shape. And I bought another book and I started reading about the natural trim, but it felt to me so complicated. Like, I mean, when you never actually kept a hoof and a knife for hoofs in your hands, it feels like I cannot do it. But luckily in that book, that was a Strasser book, Lifetime of Soundness, it was mentioned her email address. So because I knew I should make it as soon as possible. So for me, it was not a question. We have 3 farriers at that moment. and no one does barefoot trim. So then I will learn it. I mean, what options I have? So I sent email to Strasser, and she was just collecting her last group because she's quite old. She was, I think, that moment, I think she was 72 or something. And
Yes.
so if I texted her in August, in October, we started.
Yes, I will definitely ask you later about Strasser and the clinics you did with her.
Because I wanted my horse to be healthy, and we have no specialist in Cyprus who that time could make it. It was not a question. Then I do it. So I contacted Strasser and I joined her last group, and we started. It was super tough. Like, honestly, the only thing what made me believe I can do it because I see other people do it, so it's doable.
Yeah, yeah. In the beginning, you are scared that you're going to make a lot of mistakes and cripple the horse, but at least
Yes.
yeah, at least here in northern Greece, I've slowly realized that the people who were actually farriers, they were also, amateurs when they started doing what they're doing. And after reading a few anatomy books, a few hoof care trimming books, I've realized that I got a better, more complete idea of the hoof than a lot of professionals out there who had the confidence and the courage to do some stuff that was, uh, as far as I know now, they were pretty brutal and invasive. Drilling
Very
holes in the
interesting. And
hoof.
like, all right, we just chop this much and see everything bleeding. I don't know. Yeah, it's very interesting.
Yeah. For example, here there was this saying that you have to let the horse rest for a couple of days after the shoeing, because a lot of farriers here, after they finish the job, the horse was lame because they didn't understand anatomy.
Mm-hmm.
They're always cutting much deeper than they should have. And I've had a few workshops here with beginner horse owners, not people who had horses the whole lives and whatever. And after explaining them a few very simple anatomical details, they knew now how not to penetrate the sole. They understood that the sole of the hoof has different textures. When there's things to exfoliate, it's all cracky. And when it's waxy and very soft, it means that you are now in the live sole and you should stop. And I didn't know this, that the professional farriers did not have this knowledge. They didn't understand the sole texture. They didn't understand how to measure the crevices, the sulci of the sole, and understand that, if the sulci is uh, uh, very shallow, it means that we don't have a lot of sole. The sole is flat, the pedal bone is very close to the ground, and if I cut too much, I'm going to cripple the horse. They they just don't care, because when you put the shoe, it doesn't really matter, because when you are doing barefoot work, it's the truth. If the horse is comfortable, it's comfortable. You don't have anything to mask your mistakes.
Yeah, and it feels it. But with the horseshoe, blood circulation reduces and you feel less. Very good. I mean, it's not very good, but this is how with there's sometimes creepy trim, often creepy trim. When they cut the sole, when honestly my eyes are bleeding, there is no reason to carve the sole like this.
Yes, most of the time. Yeah. So what services do you offer as a hoof care practitioner? Or I don't know if you prefer this title, how you present yourself. Here in Greece, a lot of people call me petalotis, but I correct them and I say, no, I'm not a petalotis. I'm podokomos. I'm a hoof care provide.
Very nice. You know, I started learning Greek, and now I'm at the stage when I can say a few words in Greek about myself, but I don't know how to call my profession because I said I'm not this petalotis,
No,
you know?
yeah.
So podokomos, you said, right?
Yeah, because for example, in other production, and I don't know how to call them in English, like cows, sheep, goats. This is the term podokomia. Hoof care is podokomia, because you take care of the food. So podi is food.
Okay.
And yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So
All right. So no, I say I'm a hoof care practitioner. So I provide hoof care service. I say it like this: physiological hoof care service, and I do. You know, I work with this. Or let's say 99% of the hoofs I get are short and all are having this or that level of deformation. So it's a
yes,
barefoot trim, is kind of transitioning, helping the owner. I'm not a nutritionist, but I can help them and guide them to the sources when they can read about nutrition, because the high grain diets are pretty common in this low grade laminitis when horse is always footy on stones and this stuff. I do, you know, I use in my work also sometimes, but I don't like it. In some kind of unbearable situation, I use glue-on shoes, but that mostly I'm not even advertising on my account because I don't want people to abuse the possibility to use these glue-on shoes because it's still a compromise. But I do
yes,
use, say, for example, school horses with a very, very poor feet, like no sole, very low heels and the stuff. And, you know, because it's a school horse and nobody really like private owners are ready to provide them as much care. So for example, for 1-2 months, we applying this uh, glue on shoes so it can grow a little bit more hoof, more sole, and feel more comfortable. But
yeah,
generally, I don't do it more than 1-2 cycles.
yes.
Uh, I use quite a lot, to be honest, now the sole polymers when I remove horseshoe for the sport horses
What is the
because
sole polymer?
so, you know, it's basically adhesives for the sole.
Yeah.
Okay, you can do some hoof repair with them as well.
Ah,
But
okay.
there are a few brands who are doing what you can, if you read it properly, the instruction apply to the sole, like Vetec, like Pro Glue is pretty cool stuff. For this kind of brand new sole, what is very thin typically after the shoeing, I'm creating, let's say, like 5-7 millimeters of additional layer so horses are more comfortable in this first 1-2 months. So something like this. I do provide also online consultations, and actually I was very surprised how good it works because you know, first I cannot hold the hoof in my hand, but okay, I have my let's say instruction what photos they should send me. I'm marking up the hoof. I send them only for those who trim themselves. So I don't provide online consultation for the owner who will tell it to the farrier because you know it's
Yeah,
not it's
I've tried
working.
that many
But
times. Doesn't work.
but if the owner is trimming itself, then they have pretty good results. Actually, it was very surprising to me.
Yeah, isn't
So
that something that you have better communication that someone who is a simple horse owner than with a professional farrier? Because I don't know, is it the ego
but
that
also you
gets
know the
involved?
owner exactly. Exactly. So the owner will come to the party and tell you, no, now someone from the middle of nowhere from Cyprus will teach you how to make your work better. Like uh, a very low chance it will work.
Yes, exactly, exactly. So I'm definitely going to ask you later about the polymers that you mentioned. But uh, let's let's continue with some questions that I prepare for you because you have to know it doesn't show very easily with my face that I get excited, but it's the first time I speak with a fellow hoof care practitioner because everybody here is a conventional farrier, as you know. So it feels so good that to have you, you know, speak face to face, or at least, yeah, in the form that we're doing it right now. You know, one question that I want to ask you is that a lot of people say maybe the majority of horse owners, they say that barefoot does not work. And maybe you agree with that. Certain cases, I agree with that. So what do you have to say about that? Why barefoot does not work?
You know, because, so yeah, there are cases, let's say, some exact case, the horse is all the time footy on the stones, for example, and it's just not going nowhere. For example, generally the hoof is reflecting not just the way you trimmed it, but also, for example, what horse eats, where the horse lives. And because the bare hoof has all its sensation, so the horse feels it. Of course, it's a kind of solution you apply the horseshoe, but it's not, you know, so you're not sorting out the root cause why the horse is sensitive. So this many people don't understand. And I generally tell them that it's not exist such a root cause that lack of horseshoe in the body. So you are attaching it, you are reducing the sensation, but the problem is still there.
Yes.
So always when I meet the owner, I explain that it's not just the trim, it's a very complex approach. Yeah, for some people, it's too complicated. They really better shut down the hoof with the horseshoe and forget anything about diet, about anything, you know, the really important things.
Much simpler.
Yes, but most of the people I'm working, they are pretty much ready to change, for example, the food, especially now we have a better food supply to Cyprus, so they have some grain-free options and these things.
So your way of working is that first you need to figure out what's the root cause of the problem. Why is this horse unable to walk barefoot? Because if the horse cannot walk barefoot and he's sensitive, it means there is pathology. And a lot of people ignore this fact, and they think that horses are naturally sensitive and they need to be shod, they need to be protected in all sorts of ways, like not only regarding their feet, they're also like they need to be blanketed and stabled and, you know, be protected like they are little babies. So there's a saying among hoof care professionals where they say, if the foot of the horse cannot be sound when it's barefoot, then the hoof is not sound at all. So this is what.
Yeah, I agree. Also, you know, for example, there are some hormonal problems, and horses can be sensitive or have laminitis because some, you know, this, let's say, hormonal problems with mares or something. But again, then you need to sort it out, make tests, and figure this out. It's not just you should leave it like this.
I believe one point where most people fail, because of course there are these people who have never tried it and they are just you know, prejudiced against it. They say, I've never tried it, I'm never going to try it, I believe it's not going to work. But there are a lot of people who have tried it and they have failed. And in my opinion, I believe they have failed in the transition zone. They didn't have the right tools to do a successful transition from shod to barefoot. Do you have any tips on this transition zone? And maybe for the people who don't even know what I'm talking about, if you could explain.
Well, you know, so for those who are actively riding horses or take part on some competition, so the equestrians, right? So they generally wanted to get back to riding as soon as possible, like they are really preparing for Olympic Games. So in this situation, I generally tell them, let's wait when your competition season, whatever you are doing, starts. So you give your horse time off. Even if the horse feels fine after we remove shoes, it doesn't mean that you should pull it in a full scale training, because you know, since we are basically fixing the alignment of the hoof, the whole body realigns to these new angles and stuff and muscles plus horse should get used to basically feel its feet. And this is a big problem basically because everyone is see, oh, my feet is fine, I go to jump 120 tomorrow. So this is really a problem. So the tip is to give your horse time off. It depends how good or not good the horse feels after we remove the shoes. Let's say, I would say from 3 weeks to, I don't know, as much as it needs. So during these 3 weeks, I suggest to people, to the people to do some gentle groundwork with horses, let them move, and this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Also, we speak about the diet, that reduce amount of treats what they give, because some people are just feeding horses with buckets of apples, carrots, and things. And since the blood sugar is rising, insulin and all this is kind of pro-inflammatory factors. If they don't want to get some complications upon blood circulation returning into the hoof, so they should really be strict with themselves about feeding horse with treats. And of course, they should change the diet because most of horses on a huge amount of muesli and this stuff.
Yeah, definitely.
So basically, generally, this is my recommendation. Time off and careful with the treats and food.
And do you also agree with other hoof care professionals who recommend some gradual and regular exercise so that the hoofs, have a chance to strengthen and, create this sole callus, but do it gradually and carefully so that you do not create more problems rather than, it's like going to the gym, that you can gradually become stronger, but if you overdo it, you will, tear a tendon or a muscle if you overwork. And that's something similar I see with new barefoot owners.
I let's say partly agree. So let's say when we take the shoes off, we trim the hoof, we measure the size, and I recommend always to get a hoof boots, because the terrain here is very hard. In order to get the hard callus and good sole, even the horse is sore, you should bring it over the stones. So if it's not comfortable, I believe you should not bring it over the stones. But also no need to overboot the horse. So no need, let's say if you are bringing a horse to a sandy arena for a groundwork during transition period, be barefoot. Sand, will not harm. And those people who are super overprotective, let's say we remove the shoes and the horse lives in a hoof boots, this transition will last very, very long time, because the horse will be very unused to the paddock, to the sand, to everything.
Yes.
So yeah, probably I agree. Yes, as you said, gradually. So they need to be really adequate, not ask horse too much. If it's sore on the stones, no need to force it to go, but expose it to a real life so the hoof can toughen.
Yes, a lot of people are not patient enough. So the moment they see that the horse is getting better, the hooves are getting better, because they look more beautiful once you apply a barefoot trim on them. And the horse might move and feel and show that he's more comfortable. So they think that it's ready to go wherever, and then they go outside in the stones, and then they get bruises on the sole, and then suddenly these bruises can become abscesses, and that's very bad, because then you have a horse that is now not only sensitive but probably lame, and this will take you back to the beginning, if not even further back, because now you have to to fix the inflammation first, and then start the rehabilitation process once again, the transition process again. So
Yes.
this thing that you mentioned was always very strange to me. You work with a lot of athletic horses who spend a lot of time uh, in the stall, and this was difficult for me because whenever I get a customer or a new client that says, "Oh, this is something I cannot negotiate. I cannot change that. I have to have my horse on the stall 24/7 or something like that." I just
This is
declined them
tricky.
and I said it's not going to work.
I don't have horses who live 24 hours in the stables.
Oh, okay.
I have some horses who spend the night in the stables, and that already makes a big difference. But those who live in a stable 24 hours in a deep shavings, um, I maybe I had one horse like that, but it got basically very little to no progress. And then some vet from Greece came and said, like, it's a sport horse, must be shot. So they just shot him again.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, it's living 24 hours in the stables, this is a problem. But most of our sport horses in Cyprus, to be honest, they live in the paddocks.
Oh, that's good.
Yes,
That's good. Yeah.
because yeah, I'm also explaining to the owners that it's natural for them to move, and also I'm explaining that for their tendons and ligaments and all the suspensory structure, it's important to be conditioned so they move rather than they stay in the box, and then suddenly you bring them to some physical, like, demanding physical activity, and that generally makes sense, and they're like, ah, yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
So it's
I
okay
don't
here.
know how it doesn't make any sense for them. I mean, you have athletes, you have uh you have animals that have to compete and perform, and it's like spending their whole life on a bed instead of being out there and having good physical condition and running, jumping around, exercise. It never made sense to me that you have uh, athletes at the top level of competition and they're spending their whole life sitting there. It's like going to whatever sport like marathon or whatever, but spending all day in the bed.
Box.
Yeah. You published a book on hoof boots. Is this book available in your website or somewhere that people can?
We have a link. There are two options, English and Russian for the book. I mean, and
Mhm.
that can find on my website. It can download for free. It was updated last time, I think, in July 2021, and we are planning with my colleague to update it once again because there are some other options appeared. But it's quite
Yes, all the time.
quite still quite even updated last time in July 2021. The book is still represents quite the majority of everything, of all the brands and stuff. So only a few new appeared. So I think it's useful to just know the option as you are the horse owner. It's just good to know all the possibilities, because some people still now in 2023, some people are really surprised that hoof boots exist, really.
Yes, yes, and a lot of people uh, have heard about them, but they don't realize that now there are so many options. And yeah, I just want to ask you, what is the most versatile hoof boot in your opinion? What would you recommend to most horse owners?
Let's say what I like, and generally if the hoof shape is fit for that hoof boots, I like Flex hoof boots. It's the Finnish brand. It's
Yeah.
very flexible. The sole is very flexible
Mhm.
and quite durable. So let's say we have a few horse owners who used to use them really often, let's say 3-4 times a week, and they lasted 1.5 years. So it's quite durable.
Yes, but is it easy for?
Yes, the thing is that it's very easy to put them on, take them off, to
Yeah,
work. It's and they look nice. They don't look clumsy or this kind of buckets on the legs.
yeah. They look perfect. They are very modern. They are yeah. I like their style, but I've always because
I
they look a lot like the EasyBoot glove. And I didn't have good results with the EasyBoot glove because it's a very tight fit boot, and you have to have the owner on a very tight schedule so the hoof does not get out of shape. Because once it does, then the hoof does not stay very well. And this is why I was always going
let's say
for.
all my so the majority, the absolute majority of my clients, they are on 4 weeks schedule. So generally,
Really?
uh, they are not get yes, because I also then explain if we don't want the hoof to start self trimming, a little bit chipping off, cracking and stuff, they have to trim them before hoofs start this self trimming process. And also I explain, sometimes even we don't see much of the hoof wall to cut. It doesn't mean we should not fix the hoof, because it only means it's not that the hoof what didn't grow during 4 weeks. It means the hoof was worn during 4 weeks as well.
Yes.
But if there are some patterns of improper wearing of the hooves, let's say legs are a little bit like this, or something is not perfectly aligned, then even in these 4 weeks, we have to fix the balance if we want to have a good straight legs and avoid improper weight distribution. So yeah, I'm quite strict, and those people who are not following it, I'm not working with them, because we don't have a good results, and I don't want, someone ask, who is your trimmer? And she will say, this is Anna, and but the hoofs looks like bullshit. And I don't want to have such a hoofs in my reputation, that because I cannot fix it if they don't follow the recommendations.
I agree so much with you. And in the beginning, especially, I was so afraid that if I start to put these strict limitations to my clients, I will lose everyone because you have to realize that people here in Greece, they were used to having their horses shod twice per year or every 5 6 months or something like that, or when there was a festival in the summer or whatever, they took the horse. I mean, once when I was still putting shoes on, I had a horse that had the same shoes from 13 months ago that I put. And, uh, I never tried to, force people into doing what I thought because I thought, they don't call me again. Probably they called someone else. And this was a pivotal moment for me when I've seen the shoes that I put 13 months ago on a horse and the hoof was like that big. I said, this cannot work. I mean, I have to change. And uh, it was difficult in the beginning, but it pays off later on because for once, you when you put someone on a strict schedule, uh, you do better work yourself because you know that this is the hoofs you're going to trim again and again and again. So you'll do the best work that you can because if you do something bad, you're not going to escape. It's going to be there for you when you come back. So you have to do it as best as you can. It's like taking care of yourself in that way. So you kind of give a guarantee if you have someone on such a strict schedule. And then one other aspect was that the horses become much more friendly and they behave better when you do it regularly. Uh, it's just like a regular process for them that you are trimming their feet. When you have people who just do it I don't know, once a year. And I know it sounds strange, but this is how things have been here. And it was
This kind of year, especially if it's short, is like, oh my God.
yes, yes, because it's at least if people do this, I mean, at least take the shoes off so that the hoof can self-trim. But yeah, I wanted to ask you as well, what's your opinion, or how do you go about horses who are young, who are green, who are not well behaved? What's your take on that? Do you work with them? Do you say to the owners, I only work with well-mannered horses? What do you do in such situations?
It's very interesting. I'm a lucky one because I have a husband who is very good on this horsemanship kind expression of the language. So when I know I'm going to a kind of tricky horse, I always ask him to go with me because he helps to establish, the connection with the horse, and he can explain to the owner what the owner should practice until the next time we are coming. If the owner is practicing, we always have a great improvement in this 1 month. But if the owner is not practicing, but saying that he's practicing, we have no improvement, so I know when they're lying, really. So this is what we do. We are instructing the owner how they should practice with the horse until the next time. I don't work with dangerous horses who are really, trying to kick you, or this kind of, who are not just afraid of trimming and who don't know about the trimming, but who probably so deeply injured inside mentally that they want to really kick you and smash you and
Yes.
one incident when I flew away into the wall with my face, and I don't want this to happen again. So if I understand this horse is not afraid but has this serious mental issue, then it's either should be sedated or we are not working. So I'm not risking my life with this kind of aggressive horses.
Yeah. Well, in the beginning, it was how I became popular, because they were saying, oh, just call Stavros, he will do it. And then my heart got broken because I was doing this for the horse, but I realized that people do not appreciate that. So I would spend a lot of time, fixing that trauma that you mentioned. Because there are really horses who are scared, and there are horses who are like, I'm going to get you before you get me. They've been so traumatized, but they will fight back and they will know how to kick you. So, of course, I was not so experienced back then. And, it was always a challenge, and you spend a lot of time, but you see it's not worth your effort, because, okay, you feel sorry for the horse, but then the owner was doing this. He was calling you to fix the horse, and then he would call someone else when the horse was in a good shape, mentally and physically. And this, broke my heart, because then, it was like you're breaking a promise to the horse as well, because then they take it back to being abused and, taking care of his feet once in a year or so. But it's again a problem with the mentality that people here have, this mentality that it's your job to fix the behavioral issue as well. It's your job to teach the horse how to pick up the feet. I don't know if that's the same there in Cyprus, but.
So it's quite common here as well. But I'm explaining that my job is to make a trim. And there is a profession, is the horse trainer, and it's his job to fix, for example, the behavior. Or there is a horse riding trainer, his job is to fix the riding techniques of the rider. And no need to mix these professions together. I have she's a client of mine, and she is a horse trainer. So she can help to the owner to teach the horse to behave, and actually it need also to teach the owner to behave with the horse. So
Yes.
I'm explaining that I can invite her to our trimming appointment. So you will pay to her, you will pay to me, or you can meet with her without me and practice. But it's not my job, and yeah, I know some stuff, of course, because I work with my horse myself, and we do quite a lot of groundwork and having fun. But I'm doing hoof care. I'm not doing, the horse
Yeah.
education. So,
Yeah.
and I'm not gonna risk my life, especially when kind of arrogant owners like it's your job. Okay, then you trim yourself or whatever.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's nice to hear that you have become you are strict with this, and it's nice to hear that you set your boundaries and your limits. But when you call your husband to help you, which I find fascinating, and I've also told you that in some messages that I really appreciate it when couples work together, when they have a goal and they work together towards that goal. It's very rare these days, and I really appreciate when I hear about that. So
It's
when you call him,
he's responsible. Very nice.
yeah, when you ask your husband to help you, of course, do you charge that or?
Yeah, I do. Because
Good.
generally it includes groundwork with the horse, and I charge per hour because, you know, normally for a horse in a regular trimming, good behaving, I spend around 45 minutes. And
Uh-huh.
here you bring it to a groundwork, you do this, but after the owners see the work, they are actually very happy, and they're like, oh, Zoltan is so good with horses, it's so amazing, and they see how the horse is changing, so they are typically happy to pay for that. Even first, they are kind of, but I explained that, we would like to establish a long-term connection with the horse, not every time to fight with it.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, yeah, yeah. For me, that was the reason that I started trimming, that everybody was so brutal. So when I got my first horse, I was so stressed and so anxious. Uh, of course, back then I thought that horses are shod, or anyway, uh, you take care of their hooves once they are 3 or 4 years old when you are about to ride. But I was anxious from the beginning that how am I going to put my little horse through that procedure where they were beating them with the rasp or with the hammer, or tying the tail with the hind legs, or putting the lip twitch or all this stuff. So this is when I said, okay, I have to find something on the internet where I could do it myself. And I found the first books and DVDs and stuff like that. But the reason was that I never wanted to do this job. The reason was that people expected the farrier to fix their behavioral issue, and the farriers didn't know how to do it with, they didn't have a method, so they were brutal, and they were, you know, putting the horse into submission to do their job.
Fair to say, that farriers in Cyprus, they are quite gentle. I've never really seen
That's
of
fantastic. Yeah.
every day, but I've never seen them doing something brutally. So it's actually nice.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I'm happy that things are different over there. And
Yes.
they're changing here as well. I mean, social media played a huge part in this, because people are scared now that if someone is shooting a video with their own phone, with their cameras, and then they post it online with all these animal lovers all around and animal shelters, they could lose their career, or, lose their job. So that played a huge part in this. But There are still things that happen, you know, behind closed doors, and you can feel that. You can feel that there's some dark secrets with horses. Although people tell, oh, it's good, it's calm, but you could see that the horse has not been handled properly. You know, you could even see that the horse is standing there, but his mind is trying to escape. So still there's a lot of work that needs to be done.
Yes. You know, sometimes I'm switching also between positive reinforcement. So my horses, they know the procedure. Have with me generally carrots, and I always start trimming with the left front leg, then the right front, and so and when I finish one leg, so I give them welcome treat, little, really little, like this little piece of carrot. Hello, then I finish one leg, I give them the same little piece of carrot. So they are really knowing, and some of my horses, they even learn to put the leg on the stand, you know. It's very funny. It's very cool. And yeah, they are not tense with me like at all. And even those who are coming kind of scared, something's gonna happen now. They also in half a year they getting relaxed. They know it will be rather fun than a kind of torture. And some horses also they hate of the hammering something on the hoof.
Yes.
And it can see how they are surprised that we are finishing without hammering anything. They're like, that's it. And they're like, cool. It's very nice, you know, if you think and pay attention how they react. I really like it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing how fast they want to cooperate, and they want to figure out what kind of puzzle are you putting out for them. And you know, you're making it like a game that this is what I want from you, and then you get a reward. And a lot of people have thought about this the other way around, that the horse is always trying to be the boss and is always trying to make your life difficult. But as I say again and again, his life is already very difficult, and he's just trying to figure it out, and you just have to make it easier for him to understand, and that's it. And
sometimes when this positive reinforcement is not working, and the horse is, let's say, I don't know, maybe was not working long time, and is kind of, you know, moving all the time. So from time to time, I can use also negative reinforcement, but generally for me, it's enough just to look at them, you know, like this, and they're like, all right. So it's not necessary even to beat them, but you know, this inside feeling like you have to stop it immediately, and they're like, all right, I got it. So yeah, it's interesting. I don't remember I beat the horse or something like that, you know. I can flap it a little bit like hey, stop it, or something like this, but not, you know,
yeah,
something.
this energy part that you mentioned is quite difficult for me, because I'm more physical person. I'm also a man, so this energy and emotional part where you first, you know, try to feel like you want the horse to stop, or you want the horse to go, or do whatever, and first you put it in your face or in your body energy. This is difficult for me. But once again, I never had a problem with, you know, negative reinforcement or positive reinforcement, because again, this positive reinforcement deal, it could also be stressful once you have a horse that thinks that you have a lot of treats and you are holding them from him. He can be very anxious to get them. So you could create stress using something.
This type of horses, they cannot focus. So you have to complete the treats, and he has to focus on what we are doing. Yes, I have some.
Yeah, and you could use negative reinforcement and whatever other method. And I've seen people using punishment as well. And if you are consistent, then it might not be very ethical or whatever, but in nature, horses are using punishment. They are using negative reinforcement all the time in their communication. But because they are honest and they are consistent, it makes sense.
And there is a logic, so they understand why they got it.
Yeah. and they understand when it's not out of the blue. It's, there is a action and reaction, and there is visible signs that this horse is angry at me, or this horse is happy with me, or this horse is comfortable with me. What does not make sense with humans is that when they become emotional, they might hit the horse or might react in a very inconsistent way. And this is dishonesty to the horse. It creates a lot of stress and a lot of problems.
Mhm.
So do you own a horse? Did you say that you own a horse?
Yes, you know, the one I'm posting from time to time is the big white horse is mine.
Yeah.
And my husband, he also has a horse. It's in Hungary. He lives his horse life, I think the best life. So yeah, we both have horses.
You have the horse in Hungary?
My husband has horse in Hungary.
Okay. Why don't you bring him to Cyprus as well?
Because he believes so it's a Arab horse,
Yeah.
and he's so mentally sensitive that he thinks he will not stand the ferry from Greece to Cyprus.
Okay. Okay.
Like 40 hours of ferry, and he thinks
Yeah, it's difficult. It's tough.
he
Yeah.
thinks life is in Hungary better for horse, and no, basically he's right. The horse lives with the herd on the field. There is a little girl of 12 years old half renting it, doing some exercises. So horse is actually pretty good. He goes to Hungary every month and he visits his horse, and that looks fat and happy.
Yeah, for the horse it must be great. Yeah. Yeah. So before we were talking about the book that you wrote about the hoof boots, and again you see a lot of people saying that hoof boots are not working. Why do you think that?
So one of the things what you mentioned, you have to keep a trimming cycle, so the hoof boots what you fitted will be still fit during the trimming cycle. The second, that there are some hoof shapes unfixed. So let's say there is a kind of unwell educated hoof care service serviceman, let's say, who is not managing properly the hoof shape. That
Yes.
it's flaring this way, here it's like this. So you know that the shape is not fit for the hoof boots. And
Yes.
generally, not because the hoof was born like this, it's because it is not fixed. And basically, on most of the hoof boot producers, if you read the recommendations and instructions, they say that hoof should be on a regular trimming schedule. Let's say flex hoof boots, they say 10 days, but okay, 4 weeks, it's fine generally. Scoot boots also mention this, and other hoof boots. So this is why generally hoof boots are not working, because people are not trimming the trimming schedule. Also because they figure out the size and fitting themselves what often is incorrect.
Yes. Yeah. So
And
you don't recommend people going and buying hoof boots themselves?
yes, I would recommend them to make a proper photos and
Mhm.
send to a shop where they would like to purchase it, so they can get consultation. Generally, it's free. Uh, it's very funny, but often even you see a clear instruction how to measure the hoof boots and what photos the owners should have taken. But people often even mess up this part. So if they measure this kind of stuff, what they already messed up by taking photos, it will be, of course, incorrect measurements. And another thing is that often owners are not storing and managing the hoof boots, which is
No.
generally just a common sense thing. Like, don't store them on a direct sun, because this kind of urethane rubber type of materials, it's not, they are falling apart on the sun.
Yes.
Them in a kind of box or something where rats cannot eat the pieces of the
Yes.
kind of things. So
Now I have some more personal questions, if you don't mind. Um, so first of all, I wanted to know, how did you end up in Cyprus?
Because my husband business and the tax advantages, this is why we moved to Cyprus.
Okay.
So we kind of stuck here.
Did you live in Russia up until then?
I lived in Russia until 27, my 27. Then I got married, I moved to Hungary, and then from Hungary we moved to Cyprus. And we live in 7 years now.
All right. What year were you born?
1987.
1997?
1987.
87. Okay. So you were born in the Soviet Union.
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
Oh my God, I'm so fascinated with Russian culture lately. I started reading some Russian literature, and it's how was that experience? How was it growing up there?
Well, I remember my childhood. One of my memories, I was something 3 years old, so it was approximately 1990. And we were visiting with my mom, my grandma, and it was already late, around 7, winter, dark outside, and we were kind of already tired with my mom, and she said, but we have to visit with you a supermarket. And I said, maybe we don't because we are already tired. And mom said, but if we don't visit the supermarket today, tomorrow there will be nothing there, you know?
Yeah.
So it's kind of deficit and huge queues, like people could stay in the queue for 12 hours.
Yes. So in order to go to the supermarket, did you get these cards that with credits or something like that?
There was already no cards.
What? Sorry?
But when I was born, there was already no cards.
So you were using money?
Yes.
Yes.
But the cards, it's not like you use the card instead of money. You use card and money together, just to avoid these overconsumptions. People, let's say, they see, oh, today we can buy, let's say, a buckwheat, right? And people buy like immediately 100 kilos of buckwheat. And so other people cannot get it. So they were giving these cards so you can get in one day only 1 kilo, for example. But you still pay with money.
Yeah. So again, it was who had the most money or who had the best connections, I guess.
Exactly.
Which part of Russia were you from?
I'm from Moscow.
Ah, okay. What do you think is your greatest achievement, and what would be your biggest failure?
My biggest failure, let's say I'm answering to a little bit different question, but I was thinking, what is my biggest talent? And I think my biggest talent of not giving up,
Yeah.
I don't think I was extremely talented on trimming, but I was just not giving up. It was so basically difficult. So I think my biggest failure, it would be if one day I put a metal shoes on a horse, but I'm absolutely sure I will not do it because there are so many options, which crazy that I don't think it can happen.
Yes. I love that answer. Yeah. I often wonder about this, and it's very rare that I speak with other professionals. So I'm wondering how does your day go by? What it feels to be you? I mean, you don't have to be very specific, but tell me a little bit of a regular day in your schedule.
First thing in the morning, I go to my horse, and my horse is my priority. So I never can sell my horse because I have some hoof appointments. Maybe except some emergencies, like super emergencies.
Yeah.
My horse is always first thing in the morning, and then I generally go to trim.
Do you live with your horse or?
I keep her let's say, I believe it's the best horse keeping facility in Cyprus.
Yeah.
Because they import food, hay from Italy and stuff, so we have the better hay, because in Cyprus they grow straw, not hay.
Okay.
My horse is on livery. She lives in the paddock, is not, I don't know what big, but she doesn't know what is stable.
Yes.
Besides her, I do little jumping, I do groundwork with her, we go for a hike. I put also hoof boots onto her when we go to mountains, because I don't want to pick up stones or something, even I think she's totally rook proof. But so first thing is my horse, then I go typically to trim. My base is at the ranch where I keep my horse. I have most of the clients there, but as well, Nicosia is the capital. I go to Paphos, so I've discovered quite a lot of the island because I'm trimming in the different parts, and I travel there just for fun. And twice a week I have Thai box, and that is just to keep the overall fitness.
You do what?
Thai box.
Oh my God. Oh, that was a secret of your ultimate physique. Yeah. Good.
Yeah, so that's generally goes like this.
And I've also seen that you travel outside of Cyprus. You've been to Greece as well, and
I was a few times in Thessaloniki, recently I was in Crete teaching the horse owner to trim 2 of her horses. I hope she's okay now. I go to Bulgaria from time to time, and I trim there a show jumping horse of a really top class. Is amazing animals, and
nice.
amazing how the owners, so it's a professional sportman, and amazing how he and his wife really, listening everything you are telling, trying to, because between my visits, they trim themselves, and all their show jumping horses are barefoot, like all of them. And they noticed how much more horses became balanced and more straight because they feel the feet. And everything, I'm telling them, they are listening, they are trying to organize it like immediately, so it's very cool to work with people who really want it and they are ready to do the best for this. Especially it feels like it's uncommon for the sportmen, but
Yes.
there are
That was what I was about to say. Yeah.
yes,
It's
but
very rare. So
very nice, really people, and riding, how they are riding is pretty fair. And because I also sneaked into the tack room and I saw, the equipment they are using is very cool. Very cool.
yeah. What is a good book that you would recommend to people?
The good book.
Yeah, a good book. And it doesn't have to be hoof related or horse related, whatever.
Yeah, actually, no, I would recommend the horse related, because mostly what I'm reading is the horse related stuff. So I would recommend to read Strasser's book called Lifetime of Soundness. So it's not about like a hoof trim, but it's explaining all the connection between the horse care and the horse management, and how important the feed and how important is the feeding and how you keep the horse, why the stabling is not good, in order to provide your horse a best lifetime of soundness, so it can live longer and be healthy and the stuff. So I think for the horse owners, this is really very, very good book to read. It's not big, it's interesting and very, very useful.
This book is was before 2000, no? Before the millennium.
I think it's quite old.
Yes. So I've heard a lot of negative thoughts on that particular book, which is quite intriguing for me and quite a reason to read it. I mean, when I was very young and I went to a religious school, they had this. They were trying to make us, to force us not to read Harry Potter. Do you remember that time when everybody was?
But I read it.
Yes. And so when they told me that, I was like, oh, that's a book I have to read, because they were telling me don't read that. So I know there's a lot of yeah, there's a lot of people, arguing that her methods are not correct or whatever, but I have no clue why. So
I
I would
know,
definitely read that book.
I mean, I have a clue, but the book is not about her method. This is the thing. She has another book, like a huge book about her exact method.
Yes.
And I don't recommend to read basically books about how to trim, because I think if you want to learn trimming, you should probably ask some professional to teach you. It will be more effective.
Yes.
So and faster. But a lifetime of soundness, it's explaining the things, why over rugging the horse is not good, how it affects the horse hair on a long-term drugs. How I don't remember if it's a chapter, by the way, about riding with the bit, because she has another book about riding with the bit and how it interrupts.
Yeah. I believe she was a pioneer, and all these people that came after her, Jamie Jackson or Nevzorov that you mentioned, they started because of her. I mean, maybe they became more famous than her, but they all mentioned her somewhere. Pete Ramey,
You know,
everybody started by reading Strasser. So
the problem, we also, let's say, maybe your method, there are some questionable things. Let's say, not going to discuss it now, but I think what basically made her reputation, and reputation of her method to be so brutal is because some people who certified with her started to implement a very invasive drastic trims, whatever only could be applicable in a clinical conditions, they started doing it in a real life.
yes.
This is absolutely incorrect. And so basically this what brought this reputation to the method, which is very sad, because there are some good ideas in it, But the lifetime of soundness is not about trimming methods. It's about general horse care in order to let your horse live its best life.
Yeah.
And of course, the hoof care, why it's better to be barefoot than shod and this stuff.
Yeah, it's thank you for mentioning it. I for one, I'm going to order that book and read it. And
Yeah.
as far as methods go, uh, I always try to be skeptical when somebody is talking about a particular method that works for everything, because I've seen this again and again in different aspects of my life. There can't be a method that works for all. There can't be any universal truth. For example, let's talk about hooves, for example. Everybody's saying don't cut the frog in the barefoot community. And that's bullshit, because in many cases you have to cut the frog, and it goes against other principles. For example, the principles of having the wall level with the sole. So let's say you deal with a horse that has um, very long hoof, very long walls. Sorry for my vocabulary. I'm trying to figure out the words in English. So you have a neglected hoof that has grown very long. So you remove the wall, you apply a Mustang roll, a bevel, then you'll have a huge frog that protrudes over the level of the wall, and this is going to create a pressure point for the horse. So you have to make a decision. Am I going to remove all that wall? Am I going to remove that frog? Am I going to do a little bit of that, a little bit of this? So over there, you stop thinking with the mind of method. You start applying critical thinking about what am I going to do now? How am I going to solve this problem? And afterwards, is the horse going to be comfortable, or am I going because the method says so and so?
Yes, very interesting. Because sometimes about the frog, sometimes frog is just not especially if the ground is too soft, sometimes the frog is just not worn off, not detached when they are changing. Then you
Yes.
have to remove. And this is one of the reasons why I give only personal consultations for these exact hoofs, what people are sending me. Because to be honest, I don't know. I cannot create so far in my head this kind of method or algorithm would be fit for all the hoofs and all the situations. I think even when I'm asked what I'm using actually a blend of methods. Because here I feel, based on my experience, I mean, that we should do this and this. And there, no. Because when I was using just method, sometimes it was absolutely not good. Luckily, it was my horse when I was doing these experiments, and she is very forgiving and she had a good fit. But I would like to apologize to her.
Yeah. Yeah. We've all done those mistakes, but when you are dealing with a barefoot horse, you realize those mistakes immediately, and then you know that you cannot repeat them again. You have to try to never repeat them again.
Yes.
But when you are shoeing, it's easy to mask the problem using a shoe. So I see a lot of people, trying to have a conversation with the owner or with the vet, and the vet says, "Oh, I need the heels to be a little lower. I need the toe to be a little longer. I need this. I need that." And you can actually go and do all these things that go against the natural uh, form of the hoof, because then you apply the hoof shoe underneath, and the horse might look okay, but if you remove the plates, the horse will be crippled. And that's
Yes.
a sign that there is deformity and pathology. So, in your opinion, what is the most important factor in having good feet, or in, being a successful barefoot owner? What is the most important factor?
The key is the regular trim and the low grain or no grain diet. Was these two things. It's like a drastic change, because all the structures becoming more tightly connected, like a white line, and
Yes.
it's really pretty good.
And
Very
you said you are very strict about this. You do it 1 month, 1 month trims,
yes.
4 weeks. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Uh,
This is interesting because I have some clients that I go there and there's almost nothing to do, and there are other people who I uh, have have grown immense amounts of hoof, and it has to do with, as you said, diet. It has to do with how they manage the horse. I mean, for example, my horses, that I don't have only horses, I also have mules and donkeys. Uh, I don't trim them. I don't trim them that regularly. I mean, I don't know why, but probably it's because I'm under them all the time. But to tell you the truth, some of them I have to trim them for 5 months, especially the mules. It's like, I don't know.
more wild and somehow I don't know, get into the balance. This grow and veer better than horses. I don't know.
It's very strange because I have also Arabian, which is a Anglo-Arabian, so it's a cross thoroughbred Arabian. I have a Shetland pony, which in other cases, in other stables that I go, they show a lot of growth, and a lot of deformities, flares, cracks, chips, little stuff there, little thrust. And in my place, I don't see that, and I'm worried. I'm saying, am I doing something wrong? Am I lying to the clients, trying to convince them to do it more regularly? And the one horse that I have in my stable, this one was neglected for many years, is now 14 years old. This one I have to do every 4 weeks. The rest of them, I could go up to 4 or 5. The donkey, I haven't touched it at all. I took him 2 months ago, and he's 4 years old. Nobody did anything with his hooves, and I pick them up and I say, how is this possible that there is nothing wrong here. There is nothing I could teach.
Very interesting.
I could change. So
Whereas somehow it's in the balance, this wearing and growing, wearing off and growing the hoof. But in the environment what our horses live, mostly in the paddocks, they are not soft, but they are not, I don't know, super abrasive. They, still every 4 weeks is the optimal. You
yeah.
know, also, I was not as strict in the beginning when I started, but then I understood that it just will destroy my reputation.
Yes.
Because we will get not that what we need, and I don't want to. And I just explain them kindly that, look, guys, if we will not do this like this, we will have no progress, and I don't want to have anything with these results.
Yeah.
Linked to my, and or the worst case scenario, when everything is growing, flaring out, cracking, and I had one customer. She was on an 8 week schedule, and she finally said, I need another hoof care practitioner because my horse, by the end of the cycle, walking with toe first landing. And she was growing the hoof in 8 weeks, like, those who I trim once a month grow in 8 weeks, a lot. And so she felt uncomfortable in the heels, and by the end of the cycle, yes, but that's because the owner didn't want to pay for a regular, more frequent trim.
Yes.
So anyway, I was happy we stopped dealing with each other, because her hooves also were extremely hard to trim. Horse were uneducated for any power tools and basically not behaving well, and the owner was very opinionated about everything, as you already probably could understand. But yeah, so see, it resulted that it's me not qualified enough, not that her trimming schedule was too long. And I was like,
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
I don't.
You end up getting all the blame afterwards, and you never know where that will end. I mean, I've had so many people accuse me of things that I have never done, of things I have not ever seen, and you have to be very careful, especially about your reputation, because it matters a lot. So I had even some veterinarians that were against the barefoot method, saying that I'm doing some bad work with clients that I have never seen in my life. And
Oh, wow.
I've also had the opposite happening to me, but again, I didn't like it. People saying that I'm trimming their horses while I'm not, so that they will show to the vet that they are good owners, for example. And I, yeah, a lot of strange things happen in this profession. So yeah, I guess it's
Funny things
it's all
here,
expected in this life. It's
like
surprising.
one farrier here generated an idea because his customer told it to my customer, because these two customers, they are friends. So his customer told to my customer that I was studied as a farrier, but because I'm so untalented and stupid, I could not pass the exam. So this is why I'm a barefoot trimmer. So really, I felt kind of honored, because I think it's like the last resort what he can create for himself to, to spread such a bullshit. Anyway, yeah, interesting.
Yeah, and don't fret about this, because a lot of these people who say they have a degree in farriery, I don't know if it's the same in Cyprus, but here in Greece, a lot of people who claim they have degree in farriery, it's only because they never expect you to tell them what kind of degree. Where did you go to farrier school? Because all they did was attend a seminar somewhere in the USA or in UK or something like that. It's yeah. Just and for me, it's not a deal breaker. I mean, I see all these people nowadays, going crazy with the degrees and stuff like that, but you have to pick up a profession that you enjoy, not enjoy doing, or at least that it feels less difficult for you to do it every day than something else. For example, yeah, it's difficult for me to clean shit and feed every day, be every day in the farm, if it's raining, if it's snowing, do all that kind of stuff. But it's preferable to, working somewhere else where I have to pick up phone calls or have a boss over my head or whatever. So it all goes down to this, that we are living in the information age where you can learn anything you like. You can go on the internet and learn everything you wish to learn. You can go and learn. So just go to someone and tell him, yeah, I don't have a degree or paper. Test me for 1 week and see if that works for you. And 90% of the time you'll get the job. If you love that job, and you will, yeah, if you go every Monday, if you're happy, and Friday you are sad, it means you love your job, which is the opposite of what you see all around you. People are, oh, it's Monday, I'm going to work, and then it's Friday night, they're crazy about that, or they're always looking for vacation. And why?
I always say, it's not like I'm enjoying every single trimming I'm doing, because it's a kind of physically demanding job, can be dangerous, stings, stuff. But what I say, my job brings me satisfaction, because when I see the results, and if we are following our strategy, we always see the results. This is so satisfying, like really amazing.
Yeah. Well, it's something that we've lost in the modern world, because a lot of jobs are office jobs. And the problem with that is that you don't see your work out there in the community. I mean, the person who does something like you do, after you finish your work is out there. Like it was with people with people you interact with every day, with horses you see. It's something real, it's something physical, and you see it out there. Well, when you're just picking phone calls with someone that you don't know, or you're just pushing papers or stuff, like, you go home after 8 hours of work, but you feel like you've done nothing because you can't see this actual work somewhere in. I mean, if you paint walls or if you build something in the city, you can pass over there and see your work.
You change the world,
Yeah.
But basically, office jobs is often you just making on a way ultra rich people more ultra rich.
Yes. Yeah.
This stuff. But when I was thinking, so when I started trimming in Cyprus, it was very uncommon that any sport horses would be barefoot, and now kind of there are some, let's say. Okay, everyone knows me in Cyprus. And I was thinking in the beginning that, okay, I cannot change the whole world, but if we change even a little bit, it's also fine. Because after all, my idea is that I would like to make the life for the horses better, so they don't suffer unnecessary, And then I understood, but actually I do change the whole world, because for those particular horses, it's the whole world, because so much depends on their feet. So it's no need to underestimate that we just change something. We do quite a lot. For every single horse is the whole world. And then when you feel like, so amazing.
Yes, it is. And this is even more amazing that you didn't go like, oh, somebody's opening a cafe there or a restaurant there. We should open too. We should do the same thing that everybody's saying. It will be the next new thing. It's going to be successful. I mean, what are people doing right now? I don't know. Some people are buying cheap bullshit from China and selling them in Amazon or something like that. And, but this is something that everybody's doing. So you're choosing something that you see nobody's doing barefoot trimming in Cyprus. Everybody's telling you, oh, you're not going to be successful. There is no customers asking for that. And you say, I don't care. I'm going to create the product. I'm going to create something. And then let's see if people love it or not. And from what I see, at least on the activity you have on social media, people love your work. And I believe they love the way you are. And where people fail nowadays is they're trying to convince people that they are doing it for other people. So I see this with Netflix or with Disney, and you know, Disney is almost going bankrupt now, trying to convince you that this is what you want instead of doing something real and something artistic and something beautiful. And this is what I love about your work. You're always putting all this effort into your posts, your little videos. You're explaining everything, explaining everything in every little comment. Yeah, just keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you.
I don't know. I really love talking to you, and I don't want to waste any more of your time. So I believe it's time to wrap this up. Would you like to add something up, especially some information on how people can reach you and how people can learn more about you, and you know, if they want to get help?
Website and the Instagram and who would book. Okay, but who would book anyway on the website? So website and Instagram.
Yes. And what's the address?
I will send you. You can put it in, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely.
Instagram, you know, and the website is this gobarefoothorse.com.
Gobarefoot.com.
Go Barefoot Horse.
Gobarefoothorse.com. All right.
Because it was already occupied.
All right. And the Instagram and other details, I'll put them down in the description so people can reach you. All right.
Thank you. It was cool to talk.
Thank you so much. Have a nice day.
Have a nice day. Merry Christmas upcoming.
Yeah, Merry Christmas as well.